welcome to the Liz Career Coaching Podcast. My name is Liz Herrera and I'm your host. I'm very excited to introduce our guest today, Dave Fano. Dave is a serial entrepreneur and architect by training and has built his career by creating high growth teams. He founded the successful building information and technology consultancy Case and ultimately sold it to WeWork, where he served as Chief Growth Officer. In 2020, Dave launched his latest mission, Teal, which offers tools and resources that puts career development back in the hands of the individual so they can pursue a fulfilling career. And that is why it is such a great pleasure to have you on my show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You are an architect by training. I want to know when and why did you decide that you wanted to start your own business? Maybe walk us through that journey.
Oh, I think it really started early on. Well, I think a lot of things with careers are kind of like what you see. And my dad was, before I was born, started his own company. And so I think for me growing up, that was absolutely normal, to just start your own company. Or I've talked to a lot of people where for them it was entirely foreign because no one in their family had done it before. So I think that's one thing that, honestly, I literally didn't know any different. Like in my mind, that's what you did. You started companies. And then also just from a very young age, I always was looking for ways to kind of, I don't know, come up with my own thing. I would like buy and sell comic books. I would make art. My dad was like really like fine-tuned garden. I would chop down his flowers and sell them on the side of the street. So I was always kind of like looking for ways to, have like a side hustle going.
So you always had an entrepreneurial spirit, even like it's been ingrained in you ever since you were tiny, it sounds like.
I guess, I always just wanted a lot of stuff. And so I knew I needed money to get stuff. So I wanted to buy comic books or a skateboard or a remote control car or who knows what. And it bothered me to have to beg my grandparents to buy it for me or my dad's to buy it for me. So I just knew if I worked, I could make money and I could get things. And so it was kind of like, I wanted these experiences. There was things I wanted to be able to do. And I didn't want to have to ask for permission. I'm not sure it was that I was so determined to create things or start companies. It was more that I didn't want to be encumbered in any way to do the things I wanted to do.
Interesting. So when is it that you decided that you wanted to be an architect? Like, where did that come from?
So that was when I sat down with my dad and I said, hey, I want to be an artist. I was that kid in high school that, did the cover of the yearbook, the high school t-shirt and, things like that. And I said, I want to be an artist. And he said, that's not a real job. And I said, okay. And I said, well, and then he was in construction and I had been working with him and I knew a lot about the building industry. And so I thought maybe something in the middle was architecture. I really, I had been working with architects through my dad's business. And I thought that might be like a happy medium. So it was really not like what I was running towards. It was kind of like running away from the ability to not do art. And I was like, okay, well, I guess it's like a compromise. I can do that. But it was never really with this idea that I'd be an architect. It was just this profession that I could kind of draft off of for a little bit while I went to school. And I thought, well, maybe I can make like movie sets or, figure out a way to take that into something a little bit more creative and artistic, but never really with this like desire to make buildings.
Yeah. So it sounds like there was some family pressure there. And maybe, that this career is lucrative and there's some status behind it. But in your mind, you're like, well, maybe I can leverage it into something that I actually want to do and that I enjoy.
Sorry.
Okay.
Absolutely. That was my thinking. It was, how could I do something that's like tangential, like really, my dad was like paying for my school and it wasn't that he was forcing me, I don't want to make it sound like that. It was just like, okay, well, that's good advice. I guess it's not a real job. And, I want to have a real job. So I did it and, I don't have any regrets, but that's kind of, I never I wasn't one of those people that like grew up saying, I want to be an architect, or it wasn't, it was really this kind of sort of side road into hopefully being able to do like more creative artistic things.
But it's amazing because you still, stay true to yourself, even though that was a route that's not what you ended up doing, but you leveraged that training in some kind of shape or form, which leads me now to how did you decide that you would kind of circumvent into starting your own business?
So again, I never really, just as in the way that I've kind of shaped my career, I've never had like a North Star.
Hmm.
Said like, I'm working towards this. I've always had curiosities, things that I was excited about at the moment, be it, because of exposure or because of something I saw. And I just wanted to do that. And I get kind of like, you know, excited about topics, and I want to pursue them. So, I think that that's kind of how my career has evolved. I would call it, more opportunistic than strategic in that sense. I
Mm.
had some high level ideas and some like intentions, but never really was like too deliberate about what it needed to be. So, I wanted to be an artist. Architecture was kind of like the thing that got me closest. So then once I was in architecture school, I could choose electives. I saw the things that excited me. There was 3D classes. There was like early web development. Um, I could take hand drawing classes. So I took my requirements, but anytime I got an opportunity to pursue something I was excited about, I did it. And so then when I went to grad school, well, first, even in the choice of grad school, I looked for one that was very technologically oriented because I really liked 3D. I thought maybe I could go work on movies doing 3D graphics. But I already had this architecture degree, and I was like, well, I'll get a master's. So I looked, and Columbia, I applied sort of on a prayer, hoping I'd get in. And I did, luckily. And it was one of the more sort of digitally oriented architecture programs in the country. And so when I got there, I took every 3D class I could probably possibly take. I learned about 3D printing. I did all sorts of stuff. And then little by little, just like the architecture part got, sort of whittled away. I did go and work at an architecture office for 2 years after I graduated grad school, and just realized it was not for me. Just like the pace at which it operated was too slow. The industry, wasn't really innovating. But then I met some friends and we started a company that focused on innovation in the building industry. And so I've kind of like iterated, there's kind of talks like the agile career. And that's really how I thought about it. It's like with every next step, I was making an iteration and moving a little bit closer to what I thought I wanted to do, right? Because I wasn't even like super clear on what it was. I just knew there was aspects of what I was doing that weren't working, and that I was moving a little closer to what I thought was going to be exciting for me.
I love that word iteration. I think that is, prototyping and experimenting and exploring. And so I think this will really resonate with either early careerists or, even college students that are exploring and just like you said, you're curious. You were curious. You are still curious and just gravitating toward things that excite you, that you think are interesting. And sometimes they don't necessarily have to make sense, right? Or that it's going towards something like you were saying, like that North Star. And so if there's something that is captivating, is interesting, it excites you, it motivates you, and the opportunities are there, you pursue them because they open so many doors, which clearly has happened for you. And it's trial and error. I think that's the beauty of a career path or paths, is that the opportunities can open so many different doors, just based on what it is that you enjoy, right? That you gravitate toward. So now, kind of where you're at, what would you say is your purpose and your mission?
So and I don't know, I didn't know that. I think I've kind of like discovered it.
Mm,
Every once in a while, I'll take a look back and say like, where was I the most charged up, and where did I feel like I was delivering the most value, um, in a way that was fulfilling to me, right? Because I think, sure, we can be altruistic, but even the things that we do kind of need to fill us up.
yep.
Um, so even if it is this like selflessness, it has to have a selfishness in the sense that it fills me up. Otherwise, I'm going to be drained and not want to do it anymore. So I kind of have looked back at the times in my career when that was the case. And through grad school was probably when I started to see the first indications of that, and that I was a teaching assistant. And I really, really loved empowering people with technology. I've always kind of been able to pick up technology relatively quickly. And I enjoyed sort of breaking down these complex topics and teaching people how to use it. And then that led to making technology and making systems and then teaching people how to use those, because I love when people and their potential can be unlocked
Mm.
by technology. And that's kind of what's been this recurring theme through sort of everything thereafter. The company I created and enabled through teaching technology. Then at WeWork, my job was to implement technology, and now at Teal, I'm creating technology to unlock people's potential and help them with their careers. So I think my mission is to like find opportunities where people can sort of do more with less, and really empower them to get some of these efficiencies, or sort of expansions of self through the use of tooling and knowledge.
Yeah, that's great. So in 2020, you mentioned that you launched Teal. Talk to us about Teal. What is this all about?
So, I've sort of gone back and forth from being an entrepreneur, working. I started working when I was 14 as at a concession stand, and then I worked at a comic book store, then a grocery store. Then I worked for my dad. Then I started a company. Then I did school, work, started a company, work, started a company, and you know, throughout that whole process, I've had very little like proper infrastructure to help me with my decision making. Obviously, I had a high school counselor that gave me terrible advice, because
You
they
and me
weren't that,
both.
you know, um, and I had, I make, reference this all the time. I wanted to be an industrial designer, but I asked them and they didn't know that word. And I didn't know that word. I just kind of described it in terms of function. They told me I should be a mechanical engineer, which would have been horrible. Luckily, my dad caught that and told me not to do it. Um, so, and then just it all kind of came to a head in my last job when I was at WeWork, and I saw and felt these really intense feelings around like managing my career and leaving the company, and the tremendous amount of fear and loneliness and angst that I had
Mm.
around resigning and leaving a role. And they did nothing to make me feel that way. It was all internal. They never did anything to make me feel scared or nervous, but it's just kind of this relationship we have with our careers, because it's the thing that provides our livelihood. And if the company finds out you're job searching, well, obviously, well, then like, oh shoot, we need to possibly find a replacement. And that is just kind of the commercial construct we live in. It's not personal, but we can also like build up these really intense scenarios in our mind. And that process, I said, this is really terrible. And I don't, I've got Google. And then, luckily I was in a place in my life where I could afford to pay for help, but it was very, very expensive. And then
Mhm.
I also wasted a lot of money because I didn't even get the right help. So I had to do it through trial and error. And I had been coaching and mentoring and managing a lot of sort of younger professionals, and saw, wow, they really don't have resources. They got whatever they had in university if they went there, the career services groups, but even that is like fairly limited towards job searching. And then it doesn't like continue. Uh, and then the other thing is a lot of the more like consumer oriented career coaching is again very focused on very particular things. Finding the right coach for you is really, really hard.
Mhm.
It's expensive. And I just saw that there was all these other things that were kind of being digitized in our lives. If I need to get a car from point A to point B, I can do it with an app. If I want a personal trainer, I can get it through an app. If I want to do it on myself, I can get a nutritionist, I can get a financial advisor, I can get all that stuff through an app. But there was nothing for the career, which is the thing that sort of underpins it all. Without a really great career that's providing for me, I can't take that Uber. I can't go to that concert. I can't do all these fun things that I want to do. And I said, I think that there's a way to make something here that's accessible. It doesn't in any way replace all those things that are out there already, but makes it more accessible and starts to kind of level the playing field and infrastructurally between like what a company has, right? Because a company's got HRMS systems, ATS systems, recruiters, HR departments, legal departments, all sorts of stuff. And the consumer has, maybe a relative that's an executive or like an HR professional that can help you. And so I said, I want to try to tackle this. I'm really excited, and it kind of aligns with my mission of technology empowering people.
Mhm.
And so I said, I'm going to spend the next 10 years of my life trying to crack this problem.
So, can you provide an example of how someone would use your services? How does it actually work?
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of career moments, right? When we think about the career, I think we can distill them into like buckets, right? Where there's job searching, then like onboarding, first 90 days, transitioning, then seeking promotion, conflict resolution. There's all sorts of things that you can start to kind of categorize, but that's a lot to try to
Yeah.
tackle. And, really that is kind of the death blow to a business, is to try to do too many things. And so with our long-term ambition to be with people from the day they start working to the day they retire so they can make career decisions with confidence, we know that we can't do that today, right? That's going to be the mature version of Teal. So we said, what's something that's pretty repeatable that we can almost start to playbook, as we grow into being the company we want to be? And we identified job search as probably the most repeatable, and where people kind of go through the process in a fairly lonely way. It's difficult, they don't have the resources, but there's like fairly high pain and discomfort in people doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's been our focus. So what we have today is a series of tools that help people job search better. The idea is to have this kind of digital companion that's there. It anchors on a Chrome extension. So we didn't want to create a job board because there's so many jobs, and also a lot of the jobs aren't even listed online. So we didn't want to try to create some kind of directory. We said, let's make this thing that goes with you. So you install that and you can go to any job board, and then you can start to bookmark it. Like if you're using Pinterest or Honey or one of these cool platforms, you save all the jobs. We then organize them for you. We highlight all the keywords for you. We then recommend a process. You go to applying, then interviewing. Then we give you tips every step of the way. We give you a checklist. We give you enrichments. Like, if you bookmark a contact, we can try to help you find their email address. And then we give you a template so you can do the networking. So we embed a lot of the job searching best practices right into this platform to help people run a more effective job search.
That sounds amazing. So yeah, I love the efficiency and the guidance step by step, because yes, job searching can be super draining, and if you have no idea where to start, how to start, and like you said, some people maybe are not comfortable reaching out to a career coach or seek out these types of services. So it sounds like this is a very streamlined process that can help people every step of the way, digitally, which I think is ideal for many, many people. Uh, so, of course, because I have you today, I have to pick your brain and, get some job search strategies, because you are an expert in this area, especially, with the clients that you're seeing, and the people that are utilizing your services right now with everything happening, right? So we're in the midst of this great resignation, and there are people that are considering, they're like, okay, my colleagues are leaving, I'm ready to to jump ship. What advice do you have for people that are looking to leave their organizations, and they need some job search advice?
So I'd say, if you're in a job and you're not that happy, I would pause and think about what you're going to run towards instead of what you're running away from. I see a lot of people saying, look, I don't like my manager, I don't like my company, I don't like this. They go to the next company and it's the same.
Yep.
And part of the problem is that they're just not clear on what they want. And that doesn't mean it has to be crystal clear, but I think from a place of intentionality, having an understanding of like what a great day looks like is really important. Now, that's not to say that the manager isn't bad or the company is not doing a great job. That could be very well be the case, but oftentimes it's when a person's not really clear on what they want and they're kind of just like hoping they land on this situation that's great, is where I see that expectations aren't really aligned and they tend to be pretty disappointed. So as much as I'm in favor of leaving a job if it's not right for you, and I think the world's becoming increasingly tolerant of shorter job tenures, so like those pressures I wouldn't worry about, but I wouldn't rush into it if you're not clear with what you want to do. And so I think that's where I see people really struggle. And and that's a very broad range from like, I have no idea what I want my career to be. There's lots of people struggling with that because it's a difficult decision to make sometimes when people just aren't clear with what they want to do. Or if someone's pretty clear what they want to do, but they're not sure, just like kind of what environment they're looking for. Is it that they want to be at a small company, big company? They want more growth. They want more money, right? Everyone just kind of goes to more money, but then they get the more money and they're not that happy. And so I think it's like really trying to do that work and understand like what you're looking for, what matters. And then once you do that foundational work, a lot of things start to fall into place. But what I see is people sort of out of rushing out of a situation, jump into a job search, and then they kind of waver for a while because they're not super clear what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's great, Dave, because I feel that it's a vicious cycle, right? So they're jumping and it's just they end up in the same type of situation. And so, when I talk to clients or even my students, it's like you have to think about what you want, that self-discovery, your values. And as you said, sometimes it's not even about a career change, it's a change in environment, in the type of leadership and what's a good fit for you. And what it is that exactly that you're looking for, what's that fulfillment, but really taking a deep dive into yourself and really understanding and gaining that clarity, which I think is probably one of the hardest things for many people. And maybe that's why they just kind of go in and jump into whatever's there. And like you said, running away from something versus being intentional about that next move. No, that's excellent advice. So maybe we can talk a little bit about some effective job searching tips, because I know that a lot of people, and I'm sure you've experienced this, that people just start applying to anything and everything, and they apply, send the same resume to 100 different jobs, and they're like, this job search process is just insane, I'm not getting a call back, I've applied to hundreds of jobs. So how or where should job seekers focus their energy?
So obviously there's a lot of advice out there. And I don't think there's like one answer. I break job searches into kind of three, what I call like primary strategies. And people should think about which one's best for them. There may be some that have higher efficacy, but I would say there's like the people centric, the company centric, and the job centric. And people centric is probably going to be like the most highly recommended, right? It's like go network, go find people, get the referral. So you're going to have to do that anyway. I just think it's where you do that in your process. So if you start with that, that's kind of a way to find jobs. What I dislike about that, it's got a little bit of less intentionality. The next one is company centric. Go find 10, 20, 30, 40 companies that you're super excited about. The tricky thing about that strategy is that people then just end up going to like the Fortune 500
Mm.
because there are so many really incredible, cool companies that we've never heard of before, right? So when you do the company centric approach, I really feel like you're kind of limiting your list, right? Because it's just what you know. And you can
Yep.
do research and there's ways to discover. So if you're aware of that, I think that there's like a fun discovery process in the company centric approach. And then the third is jobs, right? Go to job boards and start searching. And the problem with that is, there's so many. How do you know to filter them? So I would say, kind of pick a primary strategy and then start to implement a process. Again, I kind of like the job centric one because it can lead me to the others because there's so many choices, but it's also just so easy, right? And you can see those are jobs that are truly on the market. There are companies that are hiring. So don't get wedded to one job board. This is the other thing. It's like go to a bunch, go to Indeed, go to LinkedIn, go to Simply Hired, go to a few
Yeah.
and look at these job titles and the various permutations of job titles and search and see who's out there and look at job descriptions. See what skills you need to have, see what things excite you. Then go to LinkedIn and see who do you know that works at that company. A past colleague, someone that is a friend of a friend. Then start to get you into the companies. So I kind of like the job centric. That's going to then lead you to companies, obviously. Then you got to network, get those informational interviews, get to know people, and then which we can talk more about, but then sort of present your best self for that particular job opportunity.
Sounds like there's so many different methodologies, and sometimes people get stuck with one, whatever is the most comfortable, but at some point you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. And I really like how you separated those buckets from people, jobs, companies. I think that's those are really great strategies. And I always tell my students, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? and to diversify your approach is extremely important. And I really do emphasize the networking and talking to people. That's extremely instrumental. But one of the things that I hear, and I'm sure you hear this too, is that people are afraid to reach out, or, oh, I don't want to bother, my former supervisors or colleagues. I don't want to be, this person that comes across as desperate. I'm embarrassed, or I'm just afraid to connect with people that are strangers. What are your thoughts around helping people rethink their approach to networking?
Yeah. So I think, it's a topic that I don't feel gets talked about enough, is the amount of sort of shame, insecurity. We talk about imposter syndrome, but I think this is different than that. I think imposter syndrome is, when I don't think I'm capable, which, all of us are sort of nervous about failing. But I think this kind of shame of putting ourselves out there is really tough, because I think at the end of the day, it's not about inconveniencing that person. Sure, right? I mean, for some people it's that, but it's like the fear of rejection.
Yep.
Right? Asking and not hearing back, putting myself out there, admitting I need help. And I think with job search, we don't talk enough about how it really eats at our core of identity. And it's kind of like our survival today, right? Because we're not worried about some big wild animal eating us in the Sahara Desert anymore. It's like, this is our livelihood. This is our life or death, our ability to put food on the table. And us needing to sort of go out to the world and say, hey, I can't do it on my own. Can you help me? Is really hard. Really, really
Yeah.
hard.
There's a
And
vulnerability.
absolutely. And our world does not reward vulnerability. I know I'm a big Brene Brown fan. I love her work. I wish everyone could just sort of like matrix download her content into their brain. But the truth is, like, the world we live in rewards confidence. It rewards certainty. It rewards boldness, and especially in the world of hiring, right? If I'm going to go talk to somebody who I hope to hire me and say, hey, I'm not quite sure what I want to do, and if you could spend, it's like, well, okay, sure, but there's no world where I'm hiring you. I want to hire someone who knows what they're doing, and so those tensions are there, and they're valid. But what I would tell people is, forget that part. Actually, think about the fact that the people you're reaching out to probably need to hire people. So you're actually not bothering them. You're doing them a favor. You're letting them know that someone is on the market looking for work. And especially if you've worked with them before and they know your work ethic, they're going to be excited about the potential of being able to work with you again. So try to flip the script completely and
Yes.
say, who would I like to go work with again? Who do I think would be excited to work with me again? And it's not that I'm like begging or asking or being vulnerable. Flip it. It's like, I want to go do something awesome. I would love to work with you, and let's work together. And it's not, and you're going to do them a favor, because again, they're probably hiring. They've got a lot going on. Maybe even the company has a referral bonus. I wouldn't ask, but maybe they do. So most people aren't inconvenienced by it. And the truth is, if they're too busy, they're not gonna reply. And that's also absolutely fine.
Yeah, and like, no, don't take it personal. And there's plenty of people that actually want to be helpful and supportive. And I know, we're in the line of work where we want to help people. And I always tell, again, my students and my clients that don't go don't go through the job process alone. Like, you need your cheerleaders, you need your mentors, you need your support system, because I know that people will send job postings my way even though I'm not hiring, but maybe I know some of my colleagues that are hiring. And if someone, and this has happened, where people will reach out and they'll say, hey, I'm looking for these roles in case you hear of anything. And I'm like, actually, I just received this job posting. I'll put a referral on your behalf because I know you. And you just never know, right? It's a planned happenstance, or, serendipity, where you just never know. You're in the right place at the right time. You ask the right questions, you connect with this person. You just never know. And so just not being afraid. But I think, yeah, the rejection piece is definitely a real concern for a lot of people. And I think that's one of the things that I really do hear a lot.
And,
But I like
and,
that, flipping the script.
and some people are just, they want to help,
Yes.
right? So you're actually like depriving people of an opportunity to help. And those that don't want to help, they won't. And that's also totally fine. And look, it's what goes around comes around. Someone's going to come to you and ask you for a referral because you're going to land that awesome job. You're going to be somewhere. and they're going to ask you for an informational interview, or they're going to ask you if you know somebody. So it's okay. Put it out, put that good energy out into the world, also help people, make introductions if you can, give to get, but you got to put yourself out there. And it's less, I mean, the vulnerability is a component of it, but it's really about embracing that growth mindset and saying, like, these challenges are going to be the way that I grow. These are skills that are going to help me no matter what, how to reach out to somebody, how to deal with that discomfort of rejection. Growth requires struggle, and it's going to have conflict, and it's going to have impediments. And so the more you can take it head on, I think the more you'll accelerate your growth, whether it's in a job search or in another career context.
Yeah, even the whole process is a growth experience. So you mentioned LinkedIn. I have a lot of, again, students or clients that are hesitant, resistant, like they'll start or they'll create a profile, but then they don't touch it. And so I'm an advocate of LinkedIn. I'm like, it works, it's great. What are your thoughts on LinkedIn, and why should people be using it, especially if they are on the job hunt?
So I'm again, as a general like advocate of tools, I really have a very unemotional relationship with a lot of these things. I see people get really upset about them. And what I tell them is like, look, you're a little bit of like, you're losing your agency. But it's like, I'm canceling Facebook. It's like, well, you choose who you connect with. I'm canceling Twitter. It's like, well, you choose who you follow. And so all of these things in my mind are tools. And I just think it would be a huge, huge mistake to not leverage a tool like LinkedIn, right? Now in LinkedIn is like an email. If you want to have a look, maybe certain industries aren't as heavy on LinkedIn. I don't know if like doctors and nurses use LinkedIn in the same. I like I say that genuinely. I really have no idea. But certain like product management, software engineering, tech jobs, all those people are on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And so you are really working from a disadvantage by not being on a platform like this and not doing the work to help yourself, show up properly on those platforms. And I know then people get kind of upset that they feel somewhat like obligated. And look, you don't have to, but if you want to work, this is part of managing a professional brand. But at its core, it's having a reputation and an identity. So if that's not the platform for you, okay, no problem. But you do want to have something that sort of carries on beyond just like when you're in the job that, people can find you with. That's the kind of stuff that pays dividends forever. Right. So like your network and who you connect with. And so I just tell people, look, there's really nothing to lose. You don't have to post. I think that's the other thing. People think it's like, well, I don't want to post all the time. Look, you don't have to. You can do it very passively, but have a professional profile, put your work on there. It really doesn't take a lot of time. Build your connections because that's super valuable, but don't post if you don't want to. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I think I like what you said about these are tools, and it's how you use them, how you navigate, and how you leverage them for your benefit. Yeah, I think people find it like intimidating. We're like, oh, I don't know what to post, but I think it's important to have that digital presence. It's almost an expectation, right? When you connect with people, and like the first thing before it was all about business cards, and now it's like, are you on LinkedIn? And you want to have some type of presence and have a profile, but it's such a versatile tool, and you can do so much with it. And I guess just getting over that barrier of learning the platform, and I think that can also be a hesitation. But I definitely see the value of the tool, so thank you for talking about that. Do you have other tips, other go-to tips, as we wrap up, in terms of the job search process?
Yeah. One that I'm a big like customize your resume person. And it's less about the resume. I see a lot of people really get hung up on the resume and they belabor it. And so what I would say is, I strongly advocate for making a document that is this sort of your career in totality.
Mm.
And don't worry too much. I think people will sort of conflate curation with creation. And so trying to do those at the same time is very, very hard because you're like going one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back. And it's impossible to create a perfect document that encapsulates all the amazing things you've done. And companies don't want that, right? Because what people think they do is like, I need to present 100% of myself. But no company wants 100% of a person, unless it's like very, very specific. They usually want some kind of specialty that you're really good at. something that you've got deep expertise in, but you do know a lot of other things. And people make that mistake that they need to show like all these things that they're good at. And companies write job descriptions. And a job description is usually saying, this is what we want. So, what I strongly encourage is make this document that's comprehensive. I call it the comprehensive resume that has everything you've ever done in different versions, sloppy, messy, with typos. It could be
Yes.
200 pages.
Yes.
And then, make versions of that thing that I call application resumes that can be 1, 2, 3 pages that are crisp, clean, and address specifically what a company wants. So that can be kind of a bullseye versus a scattershot approach. And so that's something I tell people. It's like, really don't overthink it. Just a little tip I have is go to the job description, look at all the bullets, and just add a question mark to the back of each one, and think of them as questions and say, am I answering these questions for this particular job?
Yes. Yes, yes, and yes. I call it the master resume. It's like always my go-to term. I'm like, just write a master resume. It's for your eyes only. It's a great way just to summarize everything. And then, yeah, you go in, you pull relevant information. And the key thing, right, is that job description, that job posting. What is it that they want? And like you said, I love that you said you don't have to put your 100% in everything. It's how are you an expert, if you will, or a specialist in what they are looking to do the hiring for, and make your case through your professional package. That's wonderful. Now I am going to ask one last question, because I have, this is for me super important, and I think it's the heart of all of this, right? The job search process can really take a toll on a person's mental health, and we talked a little bit about this earlier. What message do you have for those individuals who have been job searching for a while and they feel like they're not getting anywhere? Any words of
Oh,
encouragement?
that's a tough one. I run job search groups um, through Teal. Like, I didn't say this earlier, but everything Teal does is free. Well, we don't charge for any of this stuff right now. We have, that's one of the really great benefits we have of having incredible investors, and we've got some long-term ideas on ways on how we get there. But we know that in job search, it's kind of one of the tricky times to do that. So I run these job search groups with some of our members that use our tools, and I've been working with some people for a year, if not longer. I've got some members that have been job searching for 3 years, and it's hard, and it's really tricky to see them kind of struggle through this. What I will say is, like, a common theme that I see is that there's, going back to where we started, is they're still not 100% clear on what they want to do.
Yeah.
Not always, but a lot of times. So what I would say is, don't get off the hamster wheel, right? Stop applying to jobs, take a beat, think about what really matters to you. Stop trying to present this version of yourself in the world that does a little bit of everything. Very few people want to hire somebody that does a little bit of everything, right? They want to hire someone that does a lot of a little, like, that's really good at one thing. So give yourself a break, stop, do the self-reflecting, do the self-awareness, whether it's through personality assessments. We've got a free one on Teal, or your values, your priorities. Get to that place of intentionality of, like, what it is that matters to you. Get really excited, and then you can probably get reinvigorated, and the jobs no longer become these, like, opportunities for rejection. It's actually, they become exciting. They become like shopping and reading job descriptions, like, oh, I could see myself doing that. That sounds fun. And then you become almost relentless about getting into companies because you're clear on what you want to do. Now you have the map, and now you're going to go get it. So I would say, give yourself a break. It's a hard process, but the clearer and the more excited you are about your destination, the more sort of things start to get clearer.
Now that is excellent advice. I think it's super encouraging and inspiring. And I think just that permission to give yourself a break, but having that clarity and really being intentional about the process. And that, just hearing even that it can take a lot of time, and it's okay. And just, starting from a foundation of internal and self-discovery, an assessment, and that you provide all of these resources. And thank you for saying that they were free. I think it's important to emphasize that as well. I love to share all types of tools with my audience, and I think this is invaluable. Um, it's such a pleasure to have you on my podcast. I wish I could have you all the time, and we have hours of wonderful conversation and advice for people. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise and providing guidance and resources. And I know we are going to stay connected.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And, whenever you want me back, I love talking about this stuff. So happy to talk about it anytime. This was awesome. And I hope, between the two of us, we continue to help people be in jobs they love.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.